Now, enough said with KFAN Radio's Dan Barrero and attorney and HoldingCourtPodcast.com's Ron Rosenbaum.
Last night you told CNN, quote, Islam hates us. Did you mean all 1.6 billion Muslims?
I mean a lot of them.
I know that a lot of people find appeal in the things Donald says because he says what people wish they could say. The problem is presidents can't just say anything they want. It has consequences here and around the world.
The simple fact of the matter is a lot of these Muslim countries they can't believe the stuff they see out of people who have distorted their faith.
The answer is not simply to yell, China bad, Muslims bad. You've got to understand the nature of the threats we're facing and how you deal with them.
I am Dan Barrero. This is Ron Rosenbaum here. We got the niceties out of the way. Speaking of niceties, I'm actually,
there you go.
After we both ranted last week, I think, about just how
circus.
Crazed and how circus-like the last debates, Republican debates
This is worse.
I actually found myself longing for those because, first of all, Donald Trump, was he sedated? Because I actually think he might have been on something to take the edge off, because he clearly decided, I'm not going to get into the fray. Let's get to the soundbite we just heard, though, specifically. Here's what's ironic to me among all the candidates. Donald Trump has actually been nuanced on one subject, the subject of negotiating between the Israelis and the Palestinians. He has said, I'm not going to, quote unquote, take a side because that lessens the chances that I could actually broker something, even though I don't know that Gandhi could broker anything there. And yet, on the issue of Islam hating us, he's perfectly willing to make that broad generalization. Yeah. And somebody did try to call him on, how are you gonna deal with that part of the world if you are that broad? On the other hand, they despise and hate the fact that he has said, I am going to try to be somewhat neutral on the subject as the Israelis and the Palestinians. So they like nuance sometimes. They don't like it as much. So I say a pox once again on all their houses.
If you're looking for consistency, you've got the wrong group of people. To me, Trump is already president. He doesn't need to stoop to any of these levels. If nobody's going to attack him, he's not going to attack. He doesn't need to. He's already laid out, Lion Ted and Little Marco. Meanwhile, Little Marco sounds like he's reading a script. He, in effect, said, Trump says what we all want to say, but we can't say.
Right.
But I think everybody was playing a role. There was nothing in it for Rubio to attack. He's going to be gone if he doesn't win Florida. Kasich's going to be gone if he doesn't win Ohio. Cruz has got nothing to gain by being nasty, since people think he's already Lion Ted. I just think it was playing a role, and it was tremendously uninteresting. I don't know, why do they have this many debates?
Well, that's a fair question, too.
Hi, guys. Let's rewind, and let's go to the Democratic debate on Wednesday night. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders spending the first half discussing immigration reform. Take a listen.
That if you become president, you won't deport children who are already here.
I will not.
And that you won't deport immigrants who don't have a criminal record.
That's what I'm telling you.
I will not deport children from the United States of America.
And can you promise not to deport immigrants who don't have a criminal record?
I can make that promise.
Okay.
This was a change in position for Clinton. In 2014, she said those children should be sent back to their countries and reunited with their families. Dan.
Well, this is, for me, this is another kind of
pandering,
pathetic politics that I hate. It's pandering, and we saw at another point, too. Hillary does the game that's as old as this business, but I can't stand, and is the old politics as usual, basically saying that Bernie voted against the auto bailout. The asterisk, as you know, is it was part of a larger bill in which we were bailing out Wall Street. And the fact that...
So it's a phony.
It's phony, and we're back to, do they think we are that stupid? The answer apparently is yes.
Yes.
I find this stuff just as disingenuous and annoying as anything that's going on the Republican side, because it's a game. And you know the people who know it the most? Hillary and Bernie, because they've served and they know that's part of the deal. Stuff gets added to bills, and you have to make tough decisions.
Well, I mean, this is a Univision debate.
Yeah,
It got to the point where they were going to volunteer to go down to the Rio Grande and pull people across into America. Whatever they asked them to do in terms of immigrants, we'll do. Whereas the other party says, whatever we need to do, we'll deport children, you name it, and we'll do it. it's all pandering. And in all honesty, Dan, I don't believe anything either of them say is actually going to happen in real life. So when you ask, do they think we're stupid? Of course they think we're stupid, and we may be stupid.
And then we're back to, I think, why Sanders has some appeal, because there's a feeling that he might be more, at least real, and even why Trump has some appeal.
Do you believe that, by the way?
Well, I think in some ways, but I haven't heard anybody explain to me the details on free college for everybody. It's like everybody who counts tells me the numbers don't possibly add up. So it sounds great, and we're back to we need a little bit more fine print on that side as well.
Okay, let's stick with the election, but let's move on. Ben Carson endorsing Donald Trump now. Meanwhile, Trump asking his supporters to take a pledge, affirming their commitment to voting for him at a rally in Florida.
I do solemnly swear that I, no matter how I feel, no matter what the conditions, if there's hurricanes or whatever, that's good enough, will vote on or before the 12th for Donald J. Trump for president.
Senator Ted Cruz equating this pledge to subjects declaring their devotion to a king. Dan.
Look, there's plenty to mock Trump on, and we all have done it. I'm not ready to say this is the Heil Trump moment. I'm sorry.
He's not Mussolini.
I'm not sure on that, but don't press me on that yet. But, I didn't find this. He talked about it yesterday. He's playing around. I got other stuff I'm far more bothered by on Trump. I think, once again, we're in this mode now where we got another Hitler angle. We got another Mussolini angle, and I think we're trying a little bit too. I wouldn't recommend it, but I don't think it's.
To me, it's almost one more piece of outlandish stuff that Trump does. And the comparison to Hitler, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. The Anti-Defamation League said this scares me. I don't think he's Hitler, but I've never seen. First of all, if you're standing in the crowd, can you imagine raising your right hand as I swear as I stand here, not to the United States of America, but to vote for Donald J. Trump. And what happens if I violate the pledge?
Well, you might get roughed up, apparently, if you're a protester.
Well, although, there is that.
See, that's the stuff that bugs me more. The media, and even some media members have gotten knocked around, apparently, by Trump. In one case, the allegation is a big shot, I think. That bugs me, bothers me, and I think is a lot more dangerous than whether there was any kind of a pledge.
More like the old Mussolini, whatever, that if you're not for our guy, you need to be beaten up. And there was kind of a bad incident with an African-American. Nobody seemed to bring it up at the debate last night. Why do you think that is?
It's a fair question. Ben Carson.
Who?
I think, didn't Trump call him, there was some kind of a child molester comment. There was some kind of really cheap shot that he took.
He questioned his faith.
Maybe it was his faith. And
he
now
questioned his temper.
Carson is endorsing him, which tells me he loves the smell of victory in the morning, I guess. They're all lining up to say he's probably going to win, so I want to be on the winning side. How else do you explain it?
Well, I think he thinks it's between Cruz and Trump. And Cruz gave him the old back of the hand in Iowa, where he spread the story that, which turned out to be correct, actually, that Carson was going to drop out. I mean, whatever it is, Carson doesn't know, and neither does Trump know what he stands for.
We're going to have to leave it there.
I get the impression he's a little confused.
We're going to have to leave it there, Ron. Enough said. A Minnesota teen has to deliver speeches about distracted driving after a deadly accident. The 17-year-old girl sentenced to probation after slamming into a minivan, killing a father and his 10-year-old daughter in Becker last July. Is that the best way to hold someone accountable, Dan?
Look, it's a great subject. It's a complicated subject. Given the details of this case, the testimony in this case,
which are terrible,
are ongoing, being basically pedestrians or people in the passengers, I should say,
telling her to stop texting.
Do not text any longer. This strikes me as not being tough enough. The judge, I believe, talked about basically if you were a year older, you would be doing prison time.
She was 17.
So we're back to the issue of what is prison for? Do we really want to start going down this road? Given, I'm a little squishier on this than you in general, but on the basis of the specifics of this case, this sounds a little bit, I'm not sure the distinction should have been made on prison time.
See, this is the kind of crime that can be deterred. If other teenagers know that one-time texting in this kind of situation, no probation, you are going to prison for X number of years. I think we can stop this.
I don't think we can stop it.
I'm tired of watching people cross 3 lanes of traffic watching their cell phones. This is a serious problem. It's worse than drunk driving.
I don't know if it's going to stop it. Believe it or not, I think people
shouldn't we
are
try?
Well, you got to give it a shot.
I mean, you got to try.
There are other times where it's harder, though, to prove was the texting going on at the moment of impact.
I believe my son, he will listen what he see, the consequence. And I believe he's not going back what he did.
I did not mean that. I didn't had no meaning behind it. It just happened. Yeah.
Khalid Abdul Qadir pleading guilty to a misdemeanor after felony charges were dropped. The 20-year-old admits to sending tweets threatening to kill FBI agents and a federal judge. Surprising turn of events, Ron?
Well, I know this is going to be the unpopular position, but I totally agree with giving that guy another chance. We're not going to be able to criminalize and put in prison all of the Somalis. The only thing, or all the Muslims, the only chance we have in this country is to let them think that our criminal justice system is fair and let the community deal with it. Now, there's a risk. He threatened a federal judge, he threatened a probation officer, but as far as I'm concerned, it was a creative decision, even though an unpopular one. And I think, Dan, locking people up has not worked. At some point, we got to try something different.
My concern is I'm willing to accept your position if it'll be consistent. I mean, if you're saying, see, I don't think where someone is from should have anything to do with this. And I do think we got to send.
You don't think it's relevant?
We've generally sent pretty strong messages to the idea of threatening a federal judge, threatening his life. So if we're being consistent and saying, okay, we'll give you one mulligan on that, if we're not convinced that really you were going to act upon it, then I'm fine with that. I think that's we're talking about sending messages earlier in the show. I think, now these are words, and that's different from actions, but when we've had a pretty, I thought, strong tradition of making sure people get the idea, you're messing with the rule of law if you start threatening people who we put in position to exercise authority like judges, and that scares me a little bit.
But I disagree where he's from doesn't make any difference. We've had Somalis in particular.
Right.
I think we have the highest Somali population outside of Somalia. We've had several of them that have gone back either to Syria or Somalia. And what they say is that criminal justice is outrageous. We're at war with Muslims. Maybe there's a chance of deprogramming these people, which I tend to not necessarily agree with, but in this case, I do. I just think it's the only chance we've got. We can't put them all in prison.
I'm not asking to put them all. I'm saying, though, I don't want to. I'm more nervous about creating a separate set of rules when it comes to what we do when people make threats this frontal.
But you can't treat everybody the same. You've got different reasons that people do things.
But that shouldn't be based on religion. I don't think that should be based on where you're from. That should be based on the specific circumstance having to do with the case.
Well, that would be fine if we were not in the war on terror. Yeah. And Somalia was right in the middle of it, and we are the community.
Right.
Okay,
that the FBI is focused on.
Moving on, enough said. Former Gopher Pete Nigerian's name out there for the U of M's next athletic director job. Nigerian is an options trader, TV personality, and market analyst, but doesn't have any real experience when it comes to being an athletic director. Dan?
Well, it's an interesting situation. In a more ideal circumstance, I would say, Pete, I love you. And I know you got a lot of passion for this university, but
are you claiming
we got a lot better
less
candidates
than ideal?
I'm saying right now, we're not going to be a plum job. We're not going to we don't even probably know where to get our candidates, which gets back to the fact that we're finally close to not hiring someone, Ron, not interviewing anybody. The search committee might finally be named. It's just a joke. But so in this case, I think they should at least interview him. I'm not going to say he should get the job. I think you'd have to have somebody very strong administratively with him. But I do think he brings unique things at a time where they got some significant money issues. He is motivated. So I'm willing to think out of the box here more, in part because we're not in a circumstance where we either know how to get good candidates, or I can count on that, or we even have them.
I mean, what really turned around Wisconsin was Donna Shalala as president, with no experience whatsoever with any athletic people. But she put the right guy in, Pat Richter, who put the next right guy in, Barry Alvarez.
And the rest
is history.
As far
as I'm concerned, get somebody who knows how to get stuff done. I don't care if they have any athletic experience. Nor would Teague have a lot of athletic experience.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it's time we put the best person in,
You mean
whether they have experience or not.
You mean someone who's not going to give Richard Pitino a $7 million buyout up from the previous 3? And you know the other kicker on that deal? On the back end, if somehow he gets good, the team gets good, and another school comes after him, you know what it'll cost another school? $500,000 to buy out his deal here. It's one of the worst contracts ever negotiated.
I mean, could we have negotiated
the
a stupider contract than we have with Richard Pitino? How many Big Ten wins did he have this year for that amount of money? 2. Okay, I'm sorry. The best candidate is what we need. I mean,
and he might well
guy
be.
who's going to run Heinz ketchup doesn't need to be an expert on ketchup.
Welcome back to Enough Said. Some season ticket holders suing the Timberwolves. The class action lawsuit claims the new ticket provider Flash Seats limits ways ticket holders can transfer their tickets. They can no longer sell them on the street or through secondary sites. And if you resell them, you have to charge at least 75% of face value, which many people won't pay. A lot of frustration, Dan.
75%.
Many people won't pay.
How about 5% for God's sake?
Nobody will pay.
Can you sue for ineptitude or stupidity, or how about arrogance? Because I don't know if this lawsuit's going anywhere. We've basically heard one side of the story. I'm hearing a lot of things back and forth. But bottom line here is any team that I think they're going to miss the playoffs for either the 12th or the 13th straight year.
Or just
forever. As screwed up as they have been, even if there's a little bit of promise, to get together in the summer and say, you know, we're going to modernize the way a lot of teams have. Generally, by the way, teams that are good.
Do you think?
Or at least, you know, potentially championship teams. And we're going to go to a completely new system where at least part of the time we're going to take away a ticket holder's right to take the ticket to market and decide for himself or herself the price it's going to be. And we're going to do that even though we just won 16 games. I mean, how stupid can you be and how arrogant can you be when you pick this time to completely revolutionize things?
Put it in the context. This is probably the worst franchise of all professional franchises in history, and I don't think I'm exaggerating.
Not by much.
As far as the legal aspect, I think the season ticket holders have actually very good claim because, as you know, when you buy the ticket, most people are not going to go to 81 games, particularly not with
41.
This team.
Right.
41 home games. I mean, this is not this year's Golden State Warriors, okay?
No.
This is a team that is terrible. So they thought they at least have a right to sell their tickets. Now they can't even sell the tickets except through this Flash, what is it?
Flash Seats, I think
Flash
it's called.
Seats. Yeah. And Flash Seats sets the price, which nobody's willing to
Or the
pay.
Wolves do.
So the question I have, what were they thinking?
I don't know.
What
but you've hit on a key
earth
thing
were
here.
they thinking?
On the legal side is that if you got, because people have to go early, recommit on season tickets, and you start spending money or giving money to the team.
And they did it
in
before
February and
this
March.
policy.
And the policy came after, and that's to me where, unless there's some fine print we're missing, you might be right that they have at least in part, a very legitimate legal case, even though morally it should be a slam dunk.
I mean, it's an idiotic policy, but I think legally they can do it.
Right.
If you
Other
buy
teams
your
have.
tickets with full knowledge. Otherwise, you're not getting the benefit of the bargain. If you didn't know this, why do they want to diss their own
How about this
season
idea?
ticket holders?
Could the governor, because he would not have known about any of this, like
known.
the Vikings tickets as well.
He didn't know about that.
Could the governor withhold? You know, they're going to do a remodel, and I think at least the city is involved. Maybe the state
Public
as well.
money.
Maybe we withhold some of that money until they reconsider this nonsense.
Well,
Maybe we sell tickets for the lightning round.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Let's sell tickets for that. Let's start.
Why not?
Chaos breaks out on a Spirit Airline flight bound for Los Angeles. Witnesses say it started when some women refused to turn down their music after the plane landed. It was quite the cat fight. You can see it right there. Dan.
You know, it's funny, but it's sad. But what bothered me as much as the fight is notice how many I counted at least 20 people holding up their smartphones to capture the moment. That's what we have become, Ron Rosenbaum.
Nobody's getting in there trying to stop it, right?
It's
By the way,
that's
this
as bad
is
as
what
the
will
other.
happen if they legalize cell phones. on plane.
Think about
this
it.
is going to happen. By the
Every
way,
day.
it might be more fun to fly.
It's sad.
It might be more fun. This is pretty rough, wasn't it?
It got bad, and somebody just decided to turn their boombox on before the plane had actually gotten to the gate. And
Good
said,
old
what are you gonna do
boomboxes.
about
What
it?
a good idea that is.
I didn't even know boomboxes existed.
I don't think they do. Maybe in some people's garages. Byron Smith, who's convicted of murdering 2 teenagers on Thanksgiving in his home back in 2012, will not be getting a new trial. Ron.
Well, let's be clear. Self-defense is when you have a reasonable and imminent fear of great bodily harm to you or somebody else.
Right.
If Byron Smith had seen somebody coming down later down the stairs, he could have killed him. It wouldn't have been a problem. What you don't have a right to do is shoot somebody, have them incapacitated, and then execute them. And that's exactly what he did here. Anybody who claims this is
Couldn't agree more.
self-defense,
Yeah.
it's not. It does nothing to do with the Castle Doctrine or anything else. This is flat.
There is a
out
castle
murder, and this
doctrine, but you laid out the way that would have fit.
Yeah.
This turned into an execution.
You can't
Next up.
execute after they're incapacitated.
Next up, a jury awards Erin Andrews $55 million in her lawsuit after she was filmed naked in her Nashville hotel room. How much could she actually get of that money? I've heard a lot of different numbers, Ron.
Well, she's not going to get much from him.
Because you guys are going to take it all.
No,
Once
he
again, the
doesn't
lawyers
have,
always
Will
win.
you let me finish?
Sorry.
No, he doesn't have any money. The money that he's going
Right,
to
he's-
get is going to be from
Marriott.
Marriott. And I'll tell you something. I predicted it. If they believed that the hotel did something wrong, and it would have been hard not to believe that, she could get a monster amount of money. Now, a judge has the right to reduce that amount.
Right.
An appellate court can reduce that amount.
What's the cut? Just get to the cut to the chase. What's the lawyer's cut?
Well, you know, they may work for a measly a third. Maybe they'll get $15 million.
So she's going to end up with about $500,000?
Maybe less.
A little more.
Let's go to
She's
another
gonna
case.
She deserves what she gets.
Let's go to another case.
Absolutely.
Let's call it interesting testimony from Hulk Hogan this week. He is suing the gossip site Gawker for $100 million over a sex video that he didn't know he was making with his best friend's wife. Dan.
Well,
you've had that happen. How's it worked out for you?
It's unbelievable. Well, I don't know. You're the legal guy on. I don't know what kind of case he has. What got my attention was the former editor of Gawker apparently testified, and the Hulk's attorney said, well, what about, I mean, what's the limit on age when it comes to going public or making it newsworthy, a so-called sex video? And he said 4 years old. Now, the Gawker people
At least
say,
he was honest.
he was
Okay, we
being
have to move on.
sarcastic, but that in of itself is a little frightening.
I wanted to get to this. A reporter with the Washington Post is moving to Red Lake County here in Minnesota after calling it America's worst place to live. Ron.
Well, you know, I've advocated a wall between us and Wisconsin.
I think we
don't
all
want
have.
anybody from Wisconsin moving here, and I don't want this guy moving here. He doesn't
What?
because he doesn't like Minnesota. Don't play this game of sucking up. As far as I'm concerned, we need a wall. I'm with Donald Trump on that. Only I want the wall around Minnesota.
I thought I got his bit
I
about.
suppose you want him here.
Well, I got the part where
That's
he
because
said,
you're not from here.
I'm going to go to do a story and find out what it's like. He's carrying it hellaciously, stupidly far to say, I'm going to prove how much I like it. I'm going to move there. And how long do you think
he's
he'll
going to write
stay?
about how dumb we are?
Yeah, well,
we've got enough of that.
Oh, you think he's an infiltrator, do you?
I do think
Yeah.
he's an
He's a
I
spy.
think he's
from
got
the East.
enough.